ladies and welcome you. Listen to All Burgundy and Gold, everything here on Fox, powered by Fox Sports Radio, 1340 AM and 96.9 FM in Hopewell, Virginia. I'm Glenn, joined by the homies Ray and Mo. Wole is out this week. What's up, fellas?
Ain't much, man. How you doing, Glenn?
Doing well, man. Doing well. Ready to talk some Commanders football. What's going on, Ray?
Happy New Year to the listeners. Unfortunately, it's kind of a same old story as we enter into a new year for the Washington Commanders. But the hope is that 2024 will bring a lot of good changes.
Indeed.
A lot of good changes.
Hey, listeners out there, subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Just search All Burgundy and Gold, everything. All right. Also, tweet us at the ABNG_everything and hit us up on IG at ABG_everything. And like our All Burgundy and Gold Everything Facebook page. Make sure you subscribe to our All Burgundy and Gold Everything YouTube channel as well.
And here's what we got on tap. The Washington Commanders play the Dallas Cowboys this weekend. Ron Rivera will be fired after this game, whether it be Sunday or Monday. Black Monday or Black Sunday will come for Ron Rivera. We're going to discuss who the potential next coach will be for the Washington Commanders. Also, currently, the Washington Commanders set at the number 2 pick in the NFL draft. We're going to discuss what the Washington Commanders should do with that pick. You can check out our Twitter poll as well. We'll give you the result from our Twitter poll on X, formerly known Twitter. I keep messing up on that part. I still want to call it Twitter, but it's still X, which is formerly known as Twitter, on there as well. So let's get it popping. Ron Rivera, we all know that he's out as the Washington Commanders head coach coming this weekend. Whether it's going to be Sunday, whether it's going to be Monday, we do know that Ron Rivera will no longer be the head coach of the Washington Commanders. Ray, I'm going to start with you. Who would you like to see there? What are some of the candidates that you think are potential new coaches for the Washington Commanders?
For me, the Commanders need to see what's going on in this national championship game coming up, because Jim Harbaugh, for me, is the obvious choice. You have his brother right up the road. So the familiarity with the area, I think, would be amazing. I think it would be great for a sibling rivalry as well as to build up the rivalry of the Beltway. In addition to that, what position, Glenn and Mo, did Jim Harbaugh play when he was in the NFL? He played what?
Quarterback.
And what has this organization lacked for the past 40 years? They've lacked consistency at quarterback. You bring in a dude who can develop that position, who played that position. He also, of course, is going to be a great recruiter. He wins everywhere he goes. I think that's the obvious choice. Of course, guys like Dan Quinn are also in the mix, because this team should have been a defensive football team, but it wasn't. Dan Quinn has a record of turning around defenses. He did it in Seattle. Well, he kind of inherited a good defense in Seattle. And Atlanta, I'm a bit biased because I'm an Atlanta fan, but Atlanta's defense was okay when he was there. Of course, he's done great in Dallas. He's a hot coaching name as well. He's right there in the division. I think he's also somebody who Commanders may take a look at, may interview. But for me, those are the top two choices, with Jim Harbaugh being a glaring, obvious one, right down the street from bro.
Dang, Ray, you just hog up all the spot, man. Jeez, he asked you who was the candidate. He didn't ask you for all of them, man. I'm going to go with the guy that you said second. I'm going with Dan Quinn. Seeing what he's done with the Dallas defense down there and what needs to be worked on with this Commanders team. I think that the obvious is what's going on with the quarterback situation, but a lot of people, I think, when we get to our topic later as to what the draft choice would be, I think that will take care of itself. So I'm gonna go with Dan Quinn. We see how elite the secondary in Dallas is playing. We know the investment that the Commanders have put into their secondary, with Emmanuel Forbes being number 1 overall draft pick, Martin being the second round draft pick. Young players in the back, in the back end, such as I can't believe we're still calling Cam Curl a young player, but he is Cam Curl. We know what he means to this defense, and a guy that I think that they missed this year in Defoe, Forrest at the safety, coming back. I think that Dan Quinn will have some of the pieces he needs to try to have a 2.0 of that Seattle defense that he had. Once Emmanuel Forbes gets a little bit more seasoning and come back next year with a little bit more weight and in a scheme that fits him. You know what I mean? I think the way he likes to play football was not – the Commander scheme this year was not tailor-made to him. So having a defensive-minded coach who understands scheme and who understands the skill set of the players and can optimize them. I think will come in handy for this with this team because the defense is going to have to lead the charge.
Okay, I told you right before you said that Dan Quinn is a hot name, correct? So he's going to have some other offers. So if you cannot get Dan Quinn, who's your second choice? I gave you two, Mo. Give me another one.
Oh, then just stay home. Just stay home with Eric Bieniemy. Stay home with Eric Bieniemy. Has some continuity. Let's see if his leadership style is more conducive to this team rather than being second in command behind Ron Rivera. You still got Sam Howell on the roster, somebody that he's invested a lot of time with. It's kind of funny how the season is playing out, and it's like the story is on repeat or rewind from last year. Sam Howell is starting against the Cowboys at the end of the year to showcase something, right? To see what about his future. Last year, I would say that game was the catalyst for him being the starter this year. So I think if he goes out there and he has a good performance this week, and he can kind of reinvigorate the spirit of the fan base and showcase his talents to the new ownership that if he stuck around with Eric Bieniemy, there is some promise. And then that would have a major effect on what that number 2 pick could be, right? So I think Eric Bieniemy, the guys already know him. I like to see him get an opportunity. We know what we're going to deal with in this hiring season with black coaches or the lack thereof of black coaches getting hired. So why not one that's already in the building, somebody that you are familiar with since ownership has been there and got to know him a little bit this year, and see what Eric Bieniemy can do, and go from there.
I kind of agree with you on that one, man. I do want to see EB get the job. I do want to see what EB does and what EB can do. But again, I can't knock Jim Harbaugh coming in. I think Jim Harbaugh is there. We know learned this week from Adam Schefter reported that Jim Harbaugh did not sign the extension with the University of Michigan. That Jim Harbaugh also picked up an agent who's known for getting NFL coaches getting paid. So it points to Jim Harbaugh trying to get it in the NFL, whether it's with the Washington Commanders or his name has been rumored to be out there with the San Diego Chargers as well. Going back to the West Coast.
That's what I was going to say. I think I was going to say that I think Harbaugh, if I'm Harbaugh, I'm going to get the best job available, especially if I'm coming off a national championship from my alma mater and that quarterback prowess that you're talking about when he played. What better quarterback than the job that we know is the one that's already available? Justin Herbert out there in Los Angeles. You're in sunny California. You're in a dome, right? You're the other team in Los Angeles. And you can come in. You have a ready-to-win team. When Mike Williams comes back off an injury, Quentin Johnson learns how to catch the ball. Keenan Allen returns. We don't know what they'll do with Eckler, but I think they just need a couple of pieces over there in you got me saying San Diego.
I'm sorry, that's me, man. Los Angeles, man. That's my thing.
Right. I think that team on paper is the most attractive, and they have the best quarterback situation that we're probably going to see out of the teams that are going to lose their coaches this year. So you got a big name quarterback that is already under contract. So I guess their contracts will probably align with each other, right? He gets to come in and probably have a lot of control with an organization that has lacked control, right? And then, because you know how Harbaugh does. Harbaugh comes in and he has to run the show, and he has to be in charge of everything. And he wants to buy the groceries and cook it too. So what better team than to start off with the dishes already, the sides are already practically made, right? All he has to do is come in and make sure the turkey doesn't get burned.
And that would be the problem why he won't get the Washington job, because again, Washington's looking to have a GM. They don't want to give Harbaugh that much control, right?
Absolutely not.
They don't want to have anybody have that much control with the GM title there. So the Los Angeles job may be more appealing to him and maybe something he wants. It's something that Josh Harris and his group has to talk about. If they go to a Harbaugh, right? Do you want Harbaugh to have that much control over your organization? I don't think so. I think you want a GM in place, somebody he can work with to give him some direction, to give him some guidance, and to build this team up. And let the team be sturdy and strong. Because again, it is not a fly-by-night thing. It should be trust the process, right? And if you look at the track record of Josh Harris, he does like championship winning coaches. If you go to what he did for the Philadelphia 76ers, right? He liked championship winning coaches. So again, that will give you Bill Hogball in the conversation. They will also, when you talk about championship coaches, put Bill Belichick in that conversation as well. If he leaves or New England decide to part ways with Bill Belichick. The question with Bill Belichick leaving New England, and same thing with other coaches that I'm going to name later, is these organizations, I'll name them now, Mike Tomlin, they won't let him go for free, right? They're going to trade something. They're going to want something. And if you're Washington in this position, you're not giving up any picks. You're not giving up anything
You
for a
can't
Bill
afford
Belichick.
it.
You
You
can't
can't
afford to get
afford
right.
it.
Right. You can't give up anything for a Bill Belichick or um, a Mike
A
Tomlin,
Tomlin.
which I think will be stupid if the Pittsburgh Steelers got rid of Mike Tomlin. Let's be honest, right? This guy has coached in this league for 17 seasons, has not had a losing record in 17 seasons, won a Super Bowl with your organization. You can't let him go, right? Potentially has the ability to be 10-7 this year, right? Only other coach that I've known that gotten fired after they won 10-7 has been another black coach, and I'll be that guy and said it, and that was Lovie Smith, right? When Lovie Smith was 10-6 for the Chicago Bears, and they fired him, and they got rid of him. You can't get rid of Mike Tomlin at 10-7. I would not even having a losing season. To me, if you're a Pittsburgh organization, that's bad PR. You don't want that. You take the coach who's not won, who has not had a losing season, and you fire him. People ain't gonna think that's African American race. Or here's another one thing that I did after I did research on this. Check this out: Mike Tomlin within the next 3 seasons will be able to surpass Chuck Noll's record if the Pittsburgh Steelers are able to win 10 games in the next 3 seasons. He's only 30 games away, and then he's on pace to break that record. Maybe that's something that's lingering in the back of their heads too. That they don't want Mike Tomlin to break that Chuck Noll record of 207
how
wins.
ironic would it be? How ironic would it be for the pilot organization of the Rooney Rule to get rid of a Super Bowl winning, never had a losing record coach because
Right.
they can't figure out a quarterback situation 2 years after the Hall of Famer left. It's not enough time to get rid of Mike Tomlin yet. I've been hearing the rumors all year, and it doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense.
It's only been like 3 franchises historically that's had a great succession plan from a Hall of Fame quarterback to the next quarterback. And Pittsburgh is only 2 years into their reclamation process, or we'll say, right, of trying to figure out the quarterback position. With Kenny Pickett being drafted 2 years ago in the first round with the 20th pick, like he just fell into their lap as if he wasn't already in their building every day when he was in college for the 6 years that he was in college, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that affords Mike Tomlin more time, no matter what the scrutiny is, especially the way the team has turned it around. If you're talking about how they performed this year, he's had a quarterback carousel. He started 3 different quarterbacks, right? George Pickett has been a diva all year long. Mm-hmm. He's fired the offensive coordinator. They've had long spells in the season with key defensive players being out. So all of this is in against his favor, and he's still about to be 10-7 or 9-8, and never have a losing record in the black and gold. You can't get rid of that. You can't get rid of that.
Josh Harris has to fix this. This is exactly the problem. This is a Washington pod, but we have talked about the Chargers in depth and the Steelers in depth. The Washington Commanders have to fix their organizational structure, and if what you guys are saying is true, then everybody we talked about so far they're not coming here. If you want to have a GM in place, you may want to go for a younger head coach, somebody that you can be a bit more controlling of. You can dictate a bit more of what moves need to be made. Maybe you don't have to pay him a ton of money. So it's going to be interesting to see the decision they make because Josh Harris is known as the analytics guy.
Yeah.
So he wants to bring in somebody proven as well. So how do you balance that?
I mean, you get offensive. Then that means you have to go offensive coordinator in one of these teams who are winning. Like you have to go with Ben Johnson, right? You may have to.
That. Would you want that based off what Ben Johnson's been doing lately? Would you want that?
Right. Yeah, I think you would. I think you take a Ben Johnson. I think you could do that.
I would just keep my guy then, Glenn. I would just keep my guy that's calling plays for me right now. If that's the case, I'm going after Ben Johnson.
EB is a bit divisive around here, not intentionally, but it is what it is. Half the fan base does not want him here at all. Not even the OC.
Yeah, because a lot of them they
I
don't like
mean,
his
I
they don't
think
like his discipline and the structure, right? They don't like the way that he's handling things.
And
Um,
half the players don't like him.
and half the players don't like him. So if
but
we talk about play, you talk about a guy who's out there that players like, and then this organization will be stupid if they let him go. Look what Antonio Pierce did with the Las Vegas
I totally
Raiders.
agree. You can't let these talented guys get out the building. We've seen that too many times around here. O'Connell, Shanahan, McVay. We already know when guys leave here what happens. So letting
my thing
EB
about
leave
that,
and
right?
walk, if you're gonna go in the office coordinator direction, would be stupid in my eyes as well. But I'm just giving you what
Yeah,
most of the fan base has already been telling us all season, Glenn.
But
I
Ray,
know. I know. I think it'll be stupid too. I think EB should get a shot, right? And they should have gave him a
Absolutely.
shot. They should have gave him a shot after the Bears game. I've been saying that all season. If you just you should have gave him
but
a shot
Ray,
after the Bears game. Well, go ahead, Mo.
Ray, like to your point, right? Like if you let EB go
Mm-hmm.
because players don't like him, what is what has been done here in Commander Land, Washington football team land, in the other name land that players cannot take hard coaching? They need to bring something in that's something different. And maybe that way that he coaches when he's the head man and there's nobody above him will be the linchpin that's necessary to change culture around here. Right? So everybody that comes in that's tough, that's hard on players is not liked by the players or the fan base, but they're not winning anything.
But they win though. I mean, I go to your team, Mo. When Tom Coughlin was with the New York Giants, nobody liked Tom Coughlin.
But he was
No,
effective.
he was
He was
effective. He
effective.
remember
Right?
Tom
He was
Coughlin used to hit,
good.
right? They used to hit during the summertime, but they won 2 Super Bowls. Truth be told, people didn't like Wade Phillips. They didn't like Wade Phillips when he was down in Dallas a little bit because he hit and he made them be aggressive, right? They didn't like Marty Schottenheimer here in Washington, but they started off slow and Marty, you put their butt, they finished 8-8. So Washington needs that type of coach, but Ray said it, they're looking for a model. There's a model in the NFL now. Young, fun coaches, right? Who are innovative, who think they're the next genius and can get the next quarterback to the next level. So when you talk about Sean McVay, you talk about those type of young coaches, O'Connell, and those type of coaches, and that's what the NFL model is coming to right now.
But who's to say that EB can't be that when he has the free reign to call the plays he wants to play? Or actually, what if they do something crazy with the $90 million, like field a decent offensive line so he can actually call the things he wants to call with the young quarterback and get the ball to the weapons that he has?
That makes
Is that
sense.
such a crazy
And
idea?
No, it
Glenn
makes
has
sense.
said it. Wole has said it. A lot of fans have said the same thing. If you have the structure and the pieces in place, of course it will work. But unfortunately, EB doesn't have that. He doesn't
Nope.
have that luxury.
But they got
So,
$90 million in the second overall
I,
pick. They can make it happen
well,
if they pick right.
I'm just telling you. I think definitely because EB is African American, that you're going to have a biased opinion. It's just he's not going to get a fair shake in this. It is
Yeah.
what it is, and I think it's something you got to move on from. I think Dan Quinn is a good name, but I think once the Cowboys get eliminated, I see their coach being let go, and I think Dan Quinn he stays home because I think that's what good organizations try to do. They try to keep something that's a good asset in place, and that's what Washington should do with EB. But just based on everything we're saying, if the historic pace that Sam Howell was on, the offense was top 5 at one point. Sam Howell was leading
Yeah.
the league in yards. I think EB would have a pretty strong argument as to why he should stay here. But at this point, it's been a debacle. And when you're trying to create just a brand new situation, when you want to have a clean slate, if you let EB linger, I think that bad taste of Rivera and everything that went on, unfortunately, is attached to him, even though he definitely should not necessarily
I was
be
about to say,
linked
I don't know.
to
I don't know
Rivera.
if
He
that's
shouldn't be.
fair. I
He
don't know if
shouldn't
that's
be.
fair.
He shouldn't be, but he's
Yeah,
going to
I
be
don't
But
know
linked.
if that's fair
you know
for a
he will
guy.
be. But if you want to see real change come, I think you're gonna have a complete sweep. The broom. I'm talking about both Martys, Ron, Jennifer King, all the good things they tried to do over the last several years. They're gonna sweep it all up, bro.
I'm glad you
Isn't
said it,
It's
not me,
happening.
because I was gonna say it too. Jennifer King is gone. Won't see her on the sideline anymore in this organization.
isn't
Not saying it's a bad thing.
EB the newest addition to the staff completely?
Probably, but it don't
Nah,
Right.
matter.
So like,
you got some no coach now. When Jack Del Rio got fired, he brought a couple coaches in, and then he
okay,
had
I'm about to say because I don't consider him in the Ron Rivera tree, regardless of the fact that Ron Rivera hired him. You know, I think I think that some of the problems is that him and Ron Rivera probably don't agree on some things, and the team is not at the place to do what the things that he wants to do.
Yeah, like Glenn, maybe you or Wole the one that said it. Ron was strong armed into letting Scott Turner go and then finding a solution.
Yes.
So he went and got EB, but it's not what he really wanted to do.
So
the fact that he had to bring somebody in that he really didn't want to work with in the first place, it made it a challenging dynamic from Jump Street. And then Ron, of course, puts the media right out against EB, like, oh, well, the player's saying he's too hard. It started out bad. And as a result, EB has been collateral damage in my eyes, and it's time to move forward. And what you guys are saying is Harbaugh is not looking at this because West Coast, good young quarterback out there. That looks like a more attractive situation. Washington is a dumpster fire, but those who know football and those who can see Josh Harris's track record would say, you know what, maybe this is a good situation to come into. New stadium in a few years, possibly going back to the district. DC is a good sports town.
It is a good sports town.
It is an attractive place for players, for coaches. It's just a matter of you got to have the right structure. And now,
especially with the other two teams in DC leaving. Especially with the other two teams in DC actually leaving, you want to bring this. You want to keep this team in there. You can build a fan base there. And you talk about this area, which brings up this name, Mike McDonald, right? That's right up the road, up 95, right? Who's up 95 with the Baltimore Ravens? We know that is another name that's been thrown around. He can come down 95 and help this Washington Commanders team. Me and Wole talked about it a little bit last week. What do you guys think about Mike McDonald and what he's doing with the Baltimore Ravens? Because if the Baltimore Ravens continue on the path they're going on, they might be Super Bowl champions. And this dude may be able to get a head coaching job because he just turned things around in Baltimore.
Baltimore is one of those organizations that when I think about the other coaches there, I personally feel like they're given everything they need to be successful because the organization is ran so well. They draft so well. They bring in key additions every offseason, right? They make the good choices that this organization Commanders just don't. Like draft Kyle Hamilton when he's sitting right there for you, right? like things like that. They bring in the right guys. Even with all the things we hear about Lamar Jackson and his handicaps or whatever he can't do, he's on the verge for another MVP. And his whole running back situation has never been good. He's always the leading passer, always the leading rusher on the team, right? One-man band. So with Mike McDonald, I do think that it's impressive what he's doing with the defense this year, but they have assets. Roquan Smith coming in, right? Roquan Smith has made life incredibly easier for Patrick Queen to live up to his first-round draft status, right? Them guys in front of him and Madubuike in the middle, and picking up people like Jadeveon Clowney, who's having his quiet has kept his best season ever, right? Because he's around a lot of other supremely talented guys, right? Having corners like Stevens and Marlon Humphreys and Marcus Williams is underrated at the safety over there, on the other side of Kyle. They just have pieces. So as a defensive coordinator, it's like you have everything at your disposal. Is it truly you or is it the unit that you have? Because you're going to come to a team that has far less than what you already have.
Mo hit on the head when he first started out talking about culture. It's a difference between the two organizations. You can plug in Geno Stone in Baltimore, he becomes a starter in this league. Baltimore just has a very good culture. Same thing on the offensive side. They could be on their third quarterback, third running back. They still find ways to get the job done. Washington wants to develop that, and that's, like I said, what Josh Harris is trying to create here. Is like we want to create a winning culture, one that no matter who's on board, we're going to continue to keep this train rolling in the right direction. Marvin Lewis, he came from Baltimore to DC, and it didn't work out because, again, the organizations are totally different. And at the time, that's what Dan was. Dan was cutting checks everywhere. Dan was trying to buy a championship. So you're going to have to, I think, lower your expectations a bit and let's watch this build from the ground up. But going back to what I was saying, if you really want to create or you want to restore culture, because DC already had a rich football culture in terms of Washington professional football, then you want to make sure that you get the fans back. And one way to do that is to secure your new stadium in the city. Like Glenn pointed out, you got two teams wanting to leave. That's a perfect opportunity because no matter what happens, I think even if the Wizards would have won a championship, people are still talking about the Commanders no matter what. all of the nonsense that this organization has had, Commanders are still number one somehow. The Nats won a championship, and the Nats had arguably the biggest star in baseball, and still the Washington, they didn't have a name, and they were still the biggest story. So I think you have to focus on the culture, and when you bring in a new coach, who's that going to be that you know is going to light that fire and carry that mantle that Josh Harris and this new ownership group is going to create? That also has, of course, Magic Johnson on it.
Right, and again, Ray, you said the point, and that's the key. They have to have a name, right? A name would continue to set this organization, because this organization, when they name a head coach, is going to be in the the lights, camera, action is going to be on this team, right? Going to be on this organization because of what this organization has been through over the last several years with Dan Snyder, with all the allegations, with all the nonsense that was going on with this organization, and there's been a lot of nonsense, right? And you mentioned in the DC culture. Think about it, in the last 5 years, the Mystics has won a championship, the Capitals has won a championship, the Nationals has won the championships, and the teams that have lackluster and should be winning championship or have lackluster, I can say ownership. That's the whole, because the guy who owns what I'm talking about have not won championships in this city. And the team, and they still talk about the Washington Commanders. You brought a good point. Didn't have a name, right? But still was selling. Didn't have a name and been all the allegations and still sold for $6 billion, right? Let's think about it. They still sold for $6 billion to a guy who's from the Maryland area, Josh Harris, who's from the Maryland area, who wants to see this team come back to what it was when Jack Ken Cook, right, owned this franchise, right? When Jack Ken Cook owned this franchise, it was an owner people could trust, an owner people could believe in, an owner that people really say, you know what, he was about the fans, he was about the people, he was about the community. I think Josh Harris is like that, and we'll see. And he has to have a coach in place who's willing to embrace that, because Jack Ken Cook had Joe Gibbs, right? Joe Gibbs was a guy that fans like, people like, everybody cared for. Can that new coach come in? The new coach come in and GM come in that can work together to rebuild this organization. And talk about rebuilding this organization. This organization has the number 2 pick. So it's going to be vital for this team to have a good GM and good head coach in place. So you guys, if you're the head coach of the Washington Commanders, or you're the GM of the Washington Commanders, and you have the number 2 pick, who are you selecting?
Oh, this is hard right here, man.
No, it's not.
because when you here's why it's hard, Mo. When you miss, like right now, everybody's saying Bryce Young, CJ Stroud. It looks like CJ Stroud is gonna be a future star. He already is a star. Mm-hmm. He's revitalized a franchise that was struggling for so many years. And Bryce Young is down there with no receivers, unfortunately, and not getting treated fairly by the media fans.
I'm about to say, forget the receivers.
But I know. Well, that's what I'm saying. But the thing is, when you miss Ryan Leaf, Peyton Manning, that whole thing, it is hard to recover. And there's several guys at the top of this draft you could consider taking. Glenn, you and I like Jaden Daniels, okay? And then you got Drake May, who's right there as well. So it's like one of these two guys potentially is going to be the guy that you turn to as the leader and the face of your franchise. And if you miss, you can set yourself back. You cannot miss with this pick. And that's why it's pretty darn scary. At this point, though, I'm leaning toward Jaden Daniels as somebody who can come in and fill that void that has been lackluster for, like I said, decades around here. Outside of a few years here and there with guys like RG3 and Kirk Cousins.
And Mo, before you go, I want you to go. Before I let you go, Mo, I want to add this: the Washington Commanders missed, and I'll say it. The last time they had the number 2 pick, they missed. They chose Chase Young, and not because I'm gonna say why they missed. They could have had a franchise quarterback. They picked Chase Young over Justin Herbert. Herbert went 4 picks later. I'm just saying, if you look at the 2 careers, this has nothing to do with Chase Young whatsoever. It just goes off of what happened in 2020. Chase Young was the Washington Commanders picked Chase Young. Justin Herbert went 4 picks later, was still on the board. If you ask this organization now, would they have chose Chase Young or Justin Herbert?
Tua was in that draft too, right?
You believe so. 2020. So again, talking about missing number 2 picks. This team has already missed with having the number 2 pick just a few years ago. Go ahead, Mo.
All right. You JD lovers, man. Y'all gotta stop. Y'all gotta stop. You got the number 2 overall pick, right? Let's say if everything stays in place, which it might not, because I hear if the Patriots win, the strength of schedule knocks you down to 3, right? But sitting where you are today, if everything goes as is and Caleb goes number 1, the buildup behind Drake May makes him impossible not to draft. I think the smart football decision is to get the tackle. It's not going to sit well with the fans, but the issue is the offensive line. You cannot spend all $90 million on the offensive line. You got to have a young anchor, right? The last time they drafted a tackle in the first, was it? No. This team has a good history of drafting tackles in the first round. Trent Williams, Chris Samuels, and Sheriff wasn't a tackle, but he was a damn good player, right? So Fashanu from Penn State hasn't given up a sack in his whole career. He's a Waldorf, Maryland type kid. He's the best football pick for this team based off of what the team has. But what we know, it's a new ownership group this year. It's going to be a new head coach. It's going to be a new GM, possibly a new offensive coordinator. It is going to be impossible not to draft Drake May. Drake May has pedigree from high school as being a 5-star recruit. Somebody that was a can't miss. They was talking about him getting drafted in the top 5 since he entered college. Coincidentally, he kind of forced North Carolina's hand to shoo Sam Howell away because he had to play, right? They're saying that this kid is somewhere in between Andrew Luck and Justin Herbert. He's 6'4", 230, meaning he comes from the quarterback factory. He can run. And when the white quarterbacks can run, that means their value comes all the way up, which is already high, right? So the value comes up even higher because in this NFL, they need mobility, right? And I'm talking about like mobility down the field, not just pocket presence anymore. Gone are those days. So now you have a quarterback factory kind of quarterback, rocket arm. He's going to toss it all over the yard in the T-shirt and shorts when that time comes. His stock is already high. They got people already rumoring that he might be better than Caleb. Ever since Caleb started running his mouth, they've done everything to try to diminish him, especially with USC coming down this year. The pick is going to inevitably be Drake May. Because if you're the GM that misses out on Drake May and he turns out to be what they said he was going to be, because he played at North Carolina without NFL talent for the past 2 seasons and put up 38 touchdowns his first year starting, and this year came down a little bit down to earth at 27, 28. But you still saw all the things you needed to see. So he's basically the big fish he's basically playing on a team that's not of his caliber, but he's holding his own. They're going to push that narrative up high, and he has to be the pick because they're going to need a franchise face that they can sell to put people in the seats, something to give people hope because they don't want to see Sam Howell again, especially if EB's gone and things of that nature. The pick is already made if the Commanders have the second pick. I think the drop-off between Drake May and Jaden Daniels is considerable in the eyes of the evaluators. I think that we are enamored with JD's legs because he did rush for 1,000 yards, but he's also a Brian Kelly quarterback. We know how that turns out a lot of the times, right? So there's a lot of questions about JD because when he came out, I believe he was like one of the highest ranked quarterbacks in California behind Stroud and Bryce Young, as you mentioned, right? He came up with them. He's friends with them. But he ended up going to Arizona State with Herm. And he had a few decent years. You could see the potential, but eventually he had to get out of there. Strike one. You come to LSU, you have a moderate season last year, but this year you win the Heisman, right? So you kind of get the narrative back on your side, but I think it's too little too late. And out of the 3 quarterbacks right there in the top part of the draft, he has the most question marks.
Mm-hmm.
He has the most question marks. So it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to sell a fan base on getting JD over Drake May, who people are saying is a quintessential day one starter, is going to come in and be all world.
He's Anthony Richardson all over again.
See, I don't.
But he's better than Anthony Richardson. He got a better arm.
He's better, Jansen. But this is what I'm saying. I'm right with you. I like Jaden Daniels, right? I like Jaden. I think Jaden Daniels can do well. You look at the prototypical quarterback. This is why the head coach and the GM is very important for the Washington Commanders. What are you going to try to run? What style do you want to do? Because that's going to make a difference on who they're going to pick. Here's the other scenario that I put up before we even for Ray let you go. Even if the Washington Commanders end up with 2, they could still end up with 3 because the Patriots could trade up. Washington can trade back and get more draft picks. And you're in a situation because if you're Washington and you're at 3 and Drake May is gone, Caleb is gone, you get your old lineman or you get Marvin Harrison.
You got to get the tackle.
Or you gotta get Marvin Harrison. You gotta go best player. He'll be the next best player on the board.
But you can't take Marvin Harrison. You just paid. Terry's in his first year of the $20 million. You drafted Jahan 2 years ago. You got Curtis Samuel still. Like it's too many people on the.
Curtis Samuels is gone.
He's gone. Okay. But like my point is, if you go get Marvin Harrison Jr. and you don't have a person to get him the ball, that's a waste. Because you're still not going to be able to protect.
But you can get a person getting the ball in free agency, still get your line. You still have the second round. You have the 36th pick. You have the 41st pick. You still have an opportunity to get good old linemen, quality old linemen.
But you can't miss. But you can't miss at that point. You got to go get the surefire tackle right now. You got to go get the polar bear with dancing shoes.
Yeah.
That's what you got to go get.
You can go get Ole. Go ahead, Ray.
Oh, well, I just want to say, when it comes to draft evaluators, I don't always listen to them. I'm just saying. I get that they get paid to do what they do, and I get a lot of research goes into evaluating talent coming out. But they miss a lot as well.
Absolutely.
And, sometimes when guys are transfers, like you mentioned Jaden Daniels, that's a strike against them. Joe Burrow had the same knock. They knocked Joe Burrow's hand size. The evaluators weren't keen on him. They didn't want him to go number 1.
But he had the best
Joe Burrow was
ever.
different. And then also, CJ Stroud got knocked because he was Ohio State quarterback, even though he never played with Urban Meyer. I think sometimes we gotta take out just all of the noise and watch the ability and also look at the statistics, man. And I think that it's not so clear cut. That's all. I'm not arguing with you because Drake May would be a great pick. I think Drake May is extremely talented, and you're absolutely right in the sense that if Drake May goes on to be a star and you didn't draft him, then it's that again when you miss like that, you can set your franchise back, and that's why I think it's something to just contemplate. But
that dagger gets inside of your organization.
I think that like for a team like Baltimore who did take Lamar, who the draft evaluators called a receiver, by the way. I think they're pleased with their results at this point. And if you and you see the way that the game is being played today, I feel as though either one of these guys can come in and be successful because they can both throw and they can both make plays outside the pocket. So it's a tough decision. But if you guys are right about making the best pick and then just building from the ground up, you're not worried about necessarily winning next year, then a tackle might make sense as well. You have so many things to evaluate, and Josh Harris being an analytics guy. But it's not going to be any clear-cut decision, I think, until maybe the day of the draft for this team.
Yeah. Right. And then you want the homeboy. I mean, let's not forget the homeboy Caleb. Caleb is a hometown guy, right? He's a hometown dude.
That's what scares me.
That scares me. Glenn, for me, right? If you go, let's say you go for Shanu, right? You got 5 picks in the top 100. Let's say if everything sits where it's at, right? We can't expect it. If everything sits where it's at, Michael Penix is about to climb up the board. Because I'm just saying, just hear me out. I'm not saying he's that, right? And some people are saying that Jaden Daniels might fall.
But right? Penix right now is supposed to be a second rounder.
Right. So if Penix can fall to you in the second round, you have a high upside quarterback. You got your tackle. Let's say you keep EB, right? You keep EB, you draft Fashanu. You have a quarterback competition with a guy that knows the system and a guy that's highly talented to the point where, like, if he learns this system, he can get the ball out. That kid can throw the football. So you get a quarterback of that caliber in the second round. You have somebody that you can work in. Like, this can work because.
Ooh, boy, you lucky. Boy, it's nice.
I know.
I know.
Hey, Ray, I said it because Wole's not here. Okay, I said it because Wole's not here.
Yo.
Right? But imagine if you can lump, if you can if you can address multiple needs and it pans out with a quarterback that wasn't the top three, and you still figure it out,
Would you?
I think that's worth figuring out.
If you're the Commanders, do you try to fix your quarterback needs in free agency before the draft, right?
But
Or
who's out there?
you got $90 million, you can go get somebody out there, right?
But who's
Yeah.
out there?
All right, let's see. You do
Baker's
have
probably going back. Baker's probably going back to
but you got a Russell out there. You might be able to get a swing of Justin Herbert with a pick or two, right? Right,
Justin Fields. Justin Fields.
No, it feels
Not Justin Herbert, Justin Fields.
Yeah,
Justin
but
Fields,
Fields. But this is the thing with Justin Fields, right? I'm not so sure the Bears are going to go quarterback. Because look at Justin Fields now. The Bears are winning. The Bears are winning. The Bears are winning. He's doing well.
Glenn, if the Bears blow this, Glenn,
the Bears they blowed it before. Mitchell Trubisky. Let's not forget.
Right, but that was them moving up mortgage in the future. They're sitting where everybody wants to sit, and it's not even because of them. It's because of a trade, right? Mitchell Trubisky was not Caleb Williams coming out. No matter how you dice that up, they're looking at Caleb as generational. Another caveat to the Justin Fields argument is, one, if I'm a Commanders, I do not want to let go of any one of my 5 picks in the top 100. We need every pick because we have so many holes. That's one.
That's correct.
That's one. 2, you're going to have to pay Justin Fields if you trade for him. You're going to have to pay him sooner. You don't want to be the person that has to pick up the Justin Fields bill. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And for a quarterback that's still trying to figure it out, then he's going to have to come here, learn a new system, learn new receivers. Like, I get it. I get the fascination with that. But, like, this is not the place for him. Like, I think that, you know where I think Justin Fields should go if Russell Wilson doesn't go there?
Atlanta.
That's you're a homer. Plus, he's from there. I get it.
No, he should go. He should go to
Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh should trade for Justin Fields like a 2nd and a 5th. Something like that, right?
But you got guys out there you got guys out there like, okay, Jacoby Brissett is going to be out there. Ryan Tannehill is going to be out there.
Ain't nobody worried about no Jacoby. We know what those are, Glenn.
We know what those players are. Kirk Cousins will be out there too.
Kirk Cousins will be out there.
Minnesota got to go get him. Minnesota got to take him back.
Yeah, Kirk will be out there. So
Justin Jefferson kind of said that.
Yeah, they got to take Kirk back, and they got to draft a rookie. That's a team that I see taking like a Michael Penix or something like that in the 2nd round because they could teach him for a year or 2 under Kirk, and then Kirk could go. Because Kirk was playing great before he got hurt.
But
you got to also draft a running back in this draft as well. It looks like the running back. Yeah, it looks like the running back room is going to be fairly empty once this season comes to a conclusion. So now you got to also reestablish your running game. It's more than just the quarterback. Remember that, guy.
You have two running backs. You have two. I mean, I think Chris Rodriguez stays, and Chris Rodriguez is going to stay, and Brian Robinson Jr. is going to stay.
But he ain't good enough, though, Glenn. He ain't good enough, Glenn. You know that.
Brian Robinson Jr. is good enough. Chris Rodriguez is still alive.
Brian Robinson is good enough. Chris Rodriguez is he's one of those guys that's just on a team. You know what I mean? Like he's not formidable enough to get.
But what you do, this team can get by with Brian Robinson and Chris Rodriguez.
But they can't. Brian Robinson hasn't shown that he can carry the mantle. He hasn't. We've seen flashes, but he hasn't shown that week in, week out, he can be this superior talent. And he's not superiorly talented. He's not the fastest.
But if we give Sam Howell the same break, right? Look what Brian Robinson is doing with the offensive line that he has. We give it to Sam Howell.
They're better run blockers than pass protectors, though.
But we talked about the offensive line.
Fair enough.
Offensive line.
Fair enough.
So if you give Brian Robinson a good offensive line, we see what he can do with that line. Again, Brian Robinson, of course, they do need a couple more running backs to come in.
But I just don't think he has the burst. They got
$90 million to spend. And they need again, the thing is they cannot miss on this draft pick. They have to hit right, whether it's 2 or 3. This organization has to hit correctly, and the organization has not hit correctly in the last several drafts.
I would rather the team get veteran offensive linemen with the money, and get the quarterback and get the other positions because there's a lot of holes.
What
There's a
linemen are out
lot of
there?
holes.
What linemen would you want to get out there? What old linemen are free agents
I
that
don't
could?
know who's available, but you figure it out. You figure it out. But you cannot miss on Drake May, or you cannot miss on a quarterback in this draft with the position that you have. You cannot.
No, you can't. And that's why they probably end up taking the best person left on the board, whoever that may be.
They probably end up with the third pick because the Patriots have every reason to lose to the Jets because their strength of schedule will bump them up to number 2, right? And Bill Belichick is never if Drake May is sitting there at number 2, Bill Belichick, the card is in before the Caleb can walk to get his hat. You know that.
Yes.
You know that. So he's not gonna pass up on Drake May, especially with what's happening with Mac Jones over there, right? So like then
That's
when
if
you left
Belichick's still, that's if Belichick's still there.
I
See,
got I think
it all goes with
Belichick will be there.
it goes with back what I said originally, man. It goes back to the coaching and the GM for these pieces that go into place because you have to know who the coach is. You got to know who the GM is in order for this Washington organization to make a sound decision. Then they again,
Absolutely.
I think
We
they
got
already
3 months before that though, man.
no
We
no
got
no
like
no
2,
no
3
oh no. I think they already know the GM going to be. I think as soon as Ron Rivera get fired after the Super Bowl or maybe
everybody. That's what I'm saying. We got 2, 3 months. It'd be a new GM by March. I'll tell you that.
yeah, it'll be a new GM. It'll be a new GM probably before the Super Bowl.
You think so?
Mm-hmm. I think you have a new head. I think you have a new head coach before the Super Bowl
Fair enough.
in his organization, and the reason being because one of the guys I think if you keep EB, I think everybody will have interviewed that they may have wanted by this time of the Super Bowl, unless Baltimore goes and Mike McDaniel is one of those guys. I think everybody else would probably had a bye week or had an opportunity to interview because they can't interview coaches while they still in season. So they gotta have a bye week or not playing in order to do so. If it's Mike McDaniel, if he's interviewing for Washington Commanders head job, Ron Rivera will be fired this week. Mike can interview next week because the Baltimore has the number 1 seed, and then you at least know that he's interviewed. That one's taken care of. If it's EB's in house, he can go ahead and interview while he's already in house. If it's Bill Belichick, he's gonna have to get released from the New England Patriots in order to go. Mike Tomlin, same thing, will have to get released from the Steelers, but I don't think so.
Those guys are gonna stay. I think we pretty much know that, man. Like
Then Dan Quinn is the other one that has to be able to be not playing in order for him to. And the Cowboys don't have a bye.
But the Cowboys are gonna lose. We know they're gonna lose in the second round of playoffs as always. That's always and NFC Championship weekend, he'll be here in what's this? Is it Richmond or
Ashburn?
It's Ashburn. He'll be in
Ashburn.
Ashburn in the office at the table. So
Right.
We got an interesting couple of weeks coming ahead.
Do y'all have confidence that this team can make the right pick at number 2? Do you think this organization, this is not GM, not head coach, but this analytical owner have because he goes by analytics. Let's be honest, he's an analytical guy. Do you as a fan of a journalist have confidence that his analytical means of doing so can make the right pick for this Washington Commanders?
Ray, if the man likes analytics, you know who the pick is. We know the football pick should be the tackle, right? So if he's into analytics and he gets a new head coach, it's going to be the quarterback because the coach is going to want to pair himself with the quarterback.
I'm worried, man. I'm not gonna lie. I wasn't a big fan of the Doc Rivers hire, and I know that Doc Rivers won with Boston, and he had stars at the time. And Doc Rivers has a proven track record player and coach, but didn't turn out very well. I do like the Daryl Morey pickup, so I have mixed results as far as seeing some of the moves that Josh Harris has made. But
I was wondering where you was taking that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Josh Harris he's made some moves that has gotten Philly to a point where fans are back and they're competitive. So I guess from that standpoint, you guys say, well, that's his whole goal here. Maybe it's not to win right away. He was the whole trust the process dude.
Yes.
So, I guess that's what you got to kind of buckle down, trust the process, and maybe it does take a couple misses, take a couple Ben Simmons in your wheelhouse. So we'll see what happens with what he does. But at this point, Washington fans in general know that he's an upgrade over Dan Snyder, and that's all that matters. So I would hate to see him miss on this, but I have mixed emotions. I can't say yeah or nay just based on what I just said and his track record owning Philly.
If you're basing it off of that, he drafts well. That just means he doesn't bring I think the Philly experiment went left when he brought in Daryl Morey. I think that's when it went left because Doc had think about it. Doc had them ascending. Ben Simmons was playing until he didn't shoot the layup, and then that crashed and burned. And then Joel Embiid became an MVP candidate, perennially. They make it. So if he follows that script over here, that means Washington's at least a first round playoff team. And
that's what I said. If that's the case,
the fans will take that.
So.
Fans will take that. Perennial playoff team. Fans will take that.
But Mo, think about this, and Glenn, you can attest to this.
Right.
After 2 years of seeing Embiid on the sideline, everybody said this ain't working. So it's going to be a process. That's a key word, bro. Does this franchise have the ability to keep fans happy and motivated in the stands, new stadium and all, with a process taking place?
What is the process? Okay, so which position does the process lend itself to, Glenn?
The quarterback. It goes to the quarterback. But again, because you want because you can't miss it because right now they're projecting that 60 or 70% of this roster will be turned over, right? 60 or 70% of this roster will not be back in Washington next year. So, and with the 60 and 70% and 70% gone, who's the face of this franchise? Right. So go to Mo's point. The most times your quarterback will be the face of your franchise. Of course, right now Terry McLaurin, I think, will be the face of a franchise of this organization. So you have to go that route. They can't miss. I'm not mad at an old lineman, and I'm not mad at either a quarterback with this organization. This team needs to be able to keep whoever, because whatever quarterback they get, whether it's a second rounder or bringing a free agent guy or keep Sam Howell and Jacoby Brissett, you have to keep them upright. If not, you're gonna have the same problem that they had this year by not keeping quarterbacks safe and upright, and we'll be in the same situation, maybe drafting to second or third. So the Washington Commanders have to be able to do the analytical work and do their data and find out what is best for this organization, their head coach, those that are around them, and let's see how can this team be successful moving forward. The Josh Harris group need to go. They need to search every nook and cranny, be it the Senior Bowl, be all over the place to find out, hey, can these guys be what they need to be? Have pro days, right, with the top two guys and see where they need to be at. Do they have the mechanics in and stuff like that? So it's interesting to see how this for the Washington Commanders shape out. But as Ray mentioned, this is huge for them. This is big for them. This is can't miss. You know what I'm saying? They cannot miss. Because missing it over a number 2 pick can set your organization back years. And this team, as years, right? And this team is already set back a little bit. They can't afford to go back anymore.
And by the way, Mo, what all the analysts and draft evaluators say about Zach Wilson coming out? Oh, look at my man. My man from ESPN.
He's supposed to be the second.
Was like, he got a big arm. He's a Cam Newton.
He's supposed to be He's supposed to be the second coming of Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
You gotta be careful who you listen to, Mo. Turn off ESPN, baby.
I get it, but BYU got their own. They got their own type schedule and whatnot. I never trusted Zach Wilson in the first place, but that's my point. When you have these quarterbacks with these laser arms and that can move, and when they become mobile, especially the white quarterbacks when they're mobile, that increases the value because that's what the NFL has turned to, right? The NFL has turned to a mobile quarterback league. Like in a heartbeat, if you can't move, you're archaic now, right? So when you do have the wheels, and like you do have the stature. Like, there's no questions around your stature. Like, that's what makes Drake May so appealing. That's what I mean by quarterback factory type quarterbacks. Because Caleb, they're already knocking Caleb for being 6'1". They're trying to at least. You know what I
Yes,
mean? They're trying
and
to
not
at
being
least,
and not being tough. And they try to
and
say it's
not, you know
not
what I mean?
tough. And not being tough.
Things like that. But like this team has to hit. The last couple of first round draft picks have been very, very. They've underperformed, right? Emmanuel Forbes is having a rough season. Jamin Davis ain't have, Jamin Davis is still ass.
All right, that's why you clean the house. That's the old regime.
Yeah,
Oh, don't do it.
Chase is gone. Chase is gone. Haskins passed away. God bless the dead. Deron Payne is the only number one pick in the last 5 years that's still doing something. Right? Prior to that, him and John Allen, if you go back, but then Josh Dobson and Trent Murphys and all that, man, they need to hit, and they got to hit now. And they got a good quarterback.
Most of them on the lottery. They in the lottery and they got to hit the ticket. They got the Willy Wonka gold ticket.
They got the golden ticket. I got the golden ticket. They better not miss. I'm not even a fan, but I want to see this team like rise up. You know what I mean? I want to see this team like get into contention. I'm tired of talking about the same old story about this team, the underperforming, the ownership group, this, that, and the third. We got to see something happen.
I'm gonna say this, in their division, Danny Dimes the only first round quarterback in the division right now.
That's very true. That is very true.
Culture matters, fam. That's what we all agree on.
And that's it. Culture matters. Real quick, a Twitter poll out there. What should the Washington Commanders do with the number 2 pick? 100% of the people say select a quarterback. 100% of the people say select a quarterback.
You're right there, though. Like, I could understand, Glenn, if they were not in position to get the quarterback and you was reaching for one. But if one is falling in your lap and they're supposed to be that guy, you got to take that risk.
You got to get that guy. You got to get that guy. If that guy does not be that guy and everybody else that comes after him is that guy.
Yeah, because I put it like this, Ray. If Caleb wasn't in this draft, right? If Caleb wasn't in this draft, Drake May is head and shoulders above everybody else. Yeah. If Caleb ain't in this draft,
Drake May looks like the quarterback.
Unanimously number 1 draft pick. If Caleb ain't in this draft, unanimous. So how can you sit at number 2 and then say I don't want it?
He's better than Sam Howell.
That's rough. That's going to be a hard sell to anybody. Because if Caleb wasn't in this draft, if Caleb was on that, Caleb was talking about, I don't want to play for X, Y, Z, I'll go back to school. If Caleb went back to school, Drake May is the number 1 pick without hesitation, without doubt.
Yeah.
And he still could go number 1, honestly.
And he still could go number 1.
Yeah, you're right.
He's pulling that. Yeah, he's still going number 1. So
I'm glad I ain't got to make the decision.
I'm glad I ain't got to make that decision either. It is a lot to make. It's a lot to contend with. The Washington Commanders have to make a decision this week when they take on the Dallas Cowboys. We just talked about the number 2 draft pick, all for nothing. But anyway,
can I mention one last thing?
Go ahead,
is there anything Sam can do against the Cowboys to kind of make ownership feel like how they felt last year when he played against them?
Yeah, Sam just needs. It's not about wins and losses with Sam. It is about Sam looking good in the offense. It's about Sam not throwing interceptions. Even though some of the interceptions last week wasn't his, one of the interceptions I don't believe was his fault. But Sam has to be able to take care of the football. Winning this game against Dallas, finishing the same way he started last year is very important. It would be great for the fan base if Sam Howell could upset the Cowboys' cart, right? What they have going on right now. But far as the organization, they're stuck with Sam Howell for next year or two.
Do you think it bolsters EB's candidacy if let's say Sam Howell goes out there 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. Y'all don't win, or you get close to winning, or you do win. Do you think that helps him and EB next year?
Yeah, it does.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Great. Fair. All right. I'll let you close out the show, Glenn.
All right, fellas. Thanks for rocking with us, man. I appreciate you guys here. Before we get out of here, before you guys who are listening, do us a favor. Subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play. Just search All Burgundy and Gold Everything. Also tweet us at ABG_everything and hit us up on IG at ABG_everything. And like all our Burgundy and Gold Everything Facebook page as well. Make sure you subscribe to our All Burgundy and Gold YouTube channel. Make sure you check out our pregame on Sunday, which will be at 3 o'clock this week as the Washington Commanders take on the Dallas Cowboys, since that game is at 4:15. And we will definitely have the post game immediately following the Washington Commanders as they take on the Dallas Cowboys. And we will also have information on Ron Rivera when he gets the boot for being the Washington Commander. We'll talk about it here. You've been listening to All Burgundy and Gold, everything powered by the Urban Sports Scene and Fox Sports Radio 96.9 FM, 1340 AM, Hopewell, Virginia, for ages. You dig? Ladies and gentlemen, deuces. We're out.